university in September. Congrats! And naturally, the next couple of weeks will bring a lot of change. Maybe you're feeling excited or a little bit anxious, or there's probably so many emotions that are going through your head right now. And what we want to do in these videos is to help equip you for university as we look to Jesus, our great encourager. And leaving school is one of the biggest moments of your life so far. You're now going to be in a new place with new people, and there's going to be so much change happening. I'm sure you have so many expectations for what this will look like. Maybe it's starting the course you've been looking forward to, having different relationships and friendships, and you're just maybe excited to move out and to move to a different place. Or maybe you're excited about going to that city, getting that row coffee shop that you've seen on Instagram, or going to IKEA and buying about 100 different potted plants there. But you'll feel the expectations of your teachers, your family, your friends going to university. And in your head, you might be thinking, am I the person that my teachers, my friends, my family want me to be? Who am I? Where will I find my satisfaction when I get to university? You'll have so many different voices that will try to shape your identity as you go to university. They'll be whispering to you about your worth, that you should find your worth in your friendships, in your grades, and the fact you've got to university. Or maybe you'll have other voices that are whispering that your identity is defined by you, how you feel on that day, and you can change and shape anything that your identity is. Which voice will you listen to? Who will you follow?
Whenever you go to university, there's so many things that influence your identity. For me, one thing was grades. I was always good at school, always did well in exams. This changed slightly when I went to university. I started to notice that my grades weren't as good as what I was getting in school. I definitely looked for advice from loads of different people, only to get loads of different answers. This made it even more confusing than it already was. I forgot to ask the single most important influence in my life, and that was God. And more than that, I forgot to hand over this situation to God. Once I did that, the situation became so clear. Everything else didn't matter. It was that my identity in Christ is constant and certain, and that is that I am a child of God. And no matter what my grades were, no matter what job I get in the future, I know that this will always be the same.
When we listen to the voices of others, it can feel completely overwhelming. They change and are so unstable and moving at times. Let's say we listen to that voice that says that our identity is found in our friendships or our grades, and our friends move away for uni, or we feel that university module. Or if we listen to the voice that says, actually, I can define my own self-worth, who I am, but then we have that bad day and our own voice does nothing to convince us of our identity. Let's say we say the wrong thing in today's culture, that can mean actually getting cancelled. And what makes matters worse, the people and the voices that are doing the cancelling are constantly changing their message. Similarly, in first century Philippi, they would have felt such pressure to conform, to fit in. Philippi was a city of great standing in a Roman colony, overruled by the Roman emperor. And they would have felt this pressure on the one hand to be a citizen of Rome, which would have meant a secure and comfortable life. And on the other hand, they were listening to voices in their own church that said, you must obey the laws of the Old Testament. But Paul writes a letter to them, reminding them of who their identity is really in.
Identity for me is something that was always outward more than inward. Starting school, it was kind of I always saw myself as an outsider in other people's eyes, you know, being a Nigerian immigrant kid, being a football fan, being a Christian mainly as well. And it changed when I got into university and I finally started to realise it was something that you need to decide for yourself. And especially going into the course that I was going into, you know, it didn't have a great reputation. But as soon as I got in and I got into the Christian Union and I met a lot of the Christians in the college and then as well as in different churches around the place as well, I started to realise that Jesus Christ loves me for me. He loves me for the human that I am, for the sinner that I am, and he was willing to lay his life down on the cross for me. And that's where I've really been able to find my identity, and that's where I've really rooted myself.
Paul wanted them to know that a secure identity could only be found in Jesus, who would never threaten, cancel or disappoint them. Placing an identity in him would be unshakable and unmoving. and in fact he had already begun a good work in them. And Paul isn't writing this from some ivory tower separated from suffering and hardship. In fact, Paul was writing this from prison, and he was in prison because he had placed his identity wholly in Jesus. He writes in his letter, to live is Christ and to die is gain. And during your 3 to 4 years at university, you'll have so many different voices telling you where to place your identity in. But Paul is writing, saying to place your identity in Jesus. He will completely satisfy you. That won't be shaken by all the different things that you'll have to face when you go to university. Will you pray this prayer along with Paul? Will you place your identity only in Jesus, because living for him is worth it and dying for him is gain?